Did Angela Merkel say states must give up sovereignty to the New World Order? No, that's not true. While Merkel did call on states to surrender some sovereignty, she did not mention a New World Order, and she stressed the importance of parliamentary approval for this process. The article making the claim also contains several other doctored or made-up quotes. The story went viral via an article published on ZeroHedge on December 28, 2018 titled "Angela Merkel, Nation-States Must Give Up Sovereignty to New World Order," which opened, quote, submitted by tapinfo.com, "Nation-states must today be prepared to give up their sovereignty," according to German Chancellor Angela Merkel, who told an audience in Berlin that sovereign nation-states must not listen to the will of their citizens when it comes to questions of immigration, borders, or even sovereignty. No, this wasn't something Adolf Hitler said many decades ago. This is what German Chancellor Angela Merkel told attendants at an event by the Konrad Adenauer Foundation in Berlin. Merkel has announced she won't seek re-election in 2021, and it is clear she is attempting to push the globalist agenda to its disturbing conclusion before she stands down. In an orderly fashion, of course, Merkel joked, attempting to lighten the mood. But Merkel has always had a tin ear for comedy, and she soon launched into a dark speech condemning those in her own party who think Germany should have listened to the will of its citizens and refused to sign the controversial UN Migration Pact. There were politicians who believed that they could decide when these agreements are no longer valid because they are representing the people. But the people are individuals who are living in a country, they are not a group who define themselves as the German people, she stressed. End quote. Users on social media only saw this title, description and thumbnail. Quote, Angela Merkel, nation-states must give up sovereignty to New World Order. There were politicians who believed that they could decide when these agreements are no longer valid because they are representing the people, but the people are not a group who define themselves as the German people, Angela Merkel. End quote. The article bases this on a German report about a speech Merkel gave on November 21, 2018 for the Konrad Adenauer Foundation in Berlin. The German article speaks about multiple speakers and panels, but here is the section about Merkel as translated by Google Translate. Quote, Angela Merkel calls for willingness to surrender sovereignty. Chancellor Angela Merkel advocated a reconciliation of interests at the international, parliamentary level. Nation-states should be willing to give up their sovereignty today, Merkel said on Wednesday in Berlin. But this should be done in an orderly process, which would require a parliament. At the event, Parliamentarism in the Tension of Globalization and National Sovereignty, international parliamentarians discussed ways of resolving populism and the 2019 European elections. Merkel explained that Germany had given up part of its sovereign rights to the European Union. But the states are the masters of the treaties. This requires always the backing and the decision of the national parliament. The heart of democracy is parliament, Merkel said, referring to an earlier quotation from Professor Dr. Med. Norbert Lemmert. Trust and the willingness to compromise are important keys in this national and international tense relationship. Especially in the discussions about the United Nations Migration Pact, it became clear that fundamental issues would be called into question. It questioned the democratic legitimacy of the institution and its conventions, even if they were decided a long time ago by the national parliaments. She criticized that there are people who believed that they could determine when these agreements would become invalid because they represent the people. She denied this nationalism. The people are the people who live permanently in one country and not a group that defines them as a people, emphasized the chancellor. End quote. Nowhere does she mention the New World Order, and there is no place where she says sovereign nation-states must not listen to the will of their citizens when it comes to questions of immigration, borders, or even sovereignty. It appears the article was credited to Macedonian fake news website tapinfo.com, where it was published on December 23. Quote,